There was a time when the Dakar became stagnant. People lost all hopes of seeing anything other than single cylinders battle it out for the win. So imagine everyone's excitement when a new manufacturer announced they were taking a shot at it with a completely bespoke twin-cylinder prototype. That brand was Aprilia, and they had set themselves one goal: to win the most prestigious rally of all time. Intending to stop KTM's domination, they were not going to follow conventional wisdom. They would have to battle their own reliability reputation, but succeed at this, and all naysayers would be cancelled.
This is the story of the time when Aprilia got within inches of winning the Dakar.
Their twin-cylinder dirt bike engine was not new. This platform first came out in 2006, and rallying was never a priority for the Italians. They had done motocross, supermoto, but never rallies. And their platform, well, calling it promising was an understatement. Think about it, a small and agile 450cc, but with a classical twin advantage when talking about high speeds and horsepower numbers.
And they saw this opportunity as well around the late 2000s, when the rally project got kickstarted. With that being said, Aprilia decided to factory back an already existing team instead of building their own from scratch.
This would ensure they had access to years of previous experience in the sport. Team Geophil signed up an agreement with Aprilia Racing, and they were going to represent the manufacturer by riding modified RXVs. Now, sure, this prototype was based on the publicly available dirt bike, but don't be fooled, it was far from stock. Numerous mechanical changes were applied to this platform in order to enhance its performance. The frame suffered alterations in order to better suit the fast speed scene in the desert. They collaborated with Arrow, another Italian manufacturer, in building what's arguably one of the most beautiful exhaust systems ever seen on an off-road machine. The engineers dug deep inside the engine and put titanium valves in place and a dry sump lubrication system. For all intents and purposes, this motorcycle had huge potential, as its technological level was up there with the best right from the get-go. With that, Aprilia made sure to take their sweet time to torture test the machine. In 2008, they signed up for the Faro Rally, and on their first outing, the Italians managed to win the 450cc class, while coming in third overall. A year later, at the same rally, Paolo Cecchi got the class win again. And even more, up-and-coming rider Francisco Lopez managed to even lead the overall leaderboard for a few days. And look, Aprilia was competing directly with bikes that featured engines of over 600cc. In some ways, this was not exactly a fair fight. That year, in 2009, Aprilia managed to come in fourth overall.
What these outings showed was that they had the consistency, the team dynamic, and reliability needed to have a go at the king of the rallies, Dakar.
Before talking about their debut, it's important to mention one special name: Massimo Montebelli. Yes, this rally team effort was almost 100% Italian. They didn't poach employees from competing brands, they were doing things locally, in their own Italian style. But that doesn't mean they lacked experience. Massimo had taken part in 7 previous editions of the rally and managed to finish 5 of those.
In 1994, he arrived 8th overall, overtaking many paid professional athletes along the way. Yet, he didn't become a legend for his racing, but instead for his one-of-a-kind manufacturing skills.
Massimo got the nickname of the Aluminium Magician, after becoming known for building the best custom tanks for rally prototypes. After his fuel tank work for Aprilia, he also designed the front and rear fenders, alongside other fairing bits. But Massimo was a specialist in carving out metal, so he initially built these components out of aluminium.
Later, these parts were used as molds for the finished carbon Kevlar components. Sure, maybe not the most common design methodology, but it worked.
After years of preparations and anticipation, it was finally time. Aprilia was officially going to take part in the 2010 edition of the Dakar Rally. And while this was a first for Aprilia, the edition came with many firsts for the rally as well. On one hand, the environment just moved to South America from the old African continent. Also, this was going to be the first year of the over 450cc ban. Now, okay, it didn't materialize in the end until a year later, but still, the message was clear. The motorcycles were going to change one way or another.
We actually covered this topic back in another video talking about KTM's domination.
As the days commenced, according to Aprilia's team manager, their start was slow and rough at times. Several issues tempered with their progress, but with all that, Francisco Lopez, also known as Chaleco, became a frequent customer of the top 10 classifications. And on the 6th of January 2010, Chaleco wrote history for Aprilia. The Chilean didn't start first, but as the kilometers were unwinding, he started catching up to the leaders, rider by rider.
But it was Francisco Lopez at home in Chile, his second day on home turf, who was victorious on today's stage, and victorious for the very first time with the brand new Aprilia 450 on a Dakar stage.
It showed the world that the Italians meant business. They weren't there to play around, they were there to challenge for the win. And even better, this victory took place in Francisco's homeland, Chile. A few days later, in stage 7, Marco Ma managed to recover after early setbacks and overtook the Aprilia in the overall standings, but the Italians were not done. As stage 8 came to a close, it became clear the Italian success was not a fluke, as Chaleco managed to nail another stage win.
The victor today, though, the second victory for Francisco Lopez.
This performance also moved him into the second place, behind Cyril Desprez. And to finish what they had started, in stage 12, the Aprilia rider completed the trifecta with yet another stage win. His performance was outstanding, especially for a bike and rider combo with limited experience. Now, one day later, another KTM rider, Ole Vaster, managed to dominate the stage and jump ahead of Lopez in the overall standings. That year, Cyril Desprez put out an impressive performance, leading and controlling the rally from the very beginning.
For Cyril Desprez, though, he was victorious as he came across the line, completing the final 206 kilometres. Victorious on the Dakar in Africa in 2005 and 2007, and now he wins a Dakar rally on the other side of the Atlantic here in South America.
Aprilia only managed to bag third place, which, looking at their stage wins, might come as a disappointment.
But let's not forget a few things here. This was the manufacturer's first Dakar experience in the modern era. Put it into perspective, for such a new team and rider, this was monumental. Aprilia won that year's 450cc class and cemented their place as a serious contender with a serious machine.
Just like your finger could become cemented to the subscribe button. Cheers.
Look, it's hard to talk about their Dakar program without mentioning one special person, Francisco Lopez. He came in and surprised everyone, but who was this up-and-comer? Nicknamed Chaleco, the Chilean had racing running through his blood. His father was an ex-national motocross champion.
At the young age of 4, his dad put him on his first motorcycle and Chaleco was hooked. He started racing an 85cc two-stroke and later advanced to motocross and supercross. In 2001, he received a gold medal at the 6 Days Enduro held in France. Later, the Chilean branched out into supermoto racing as well. He was a complete rider. There was no two-wheeled motorsport that his hands hadn't touched.
No other, except one. Rallying. Yet that all changed, and in 2006, Chaleco managed to win the Patagonia to Atacama rally. That same year, he came as a runner-up in the Morocco rally, and so in 2007, he took his shot at the Dakar, unfortunately having to withdraw. The thing is, it didn't take long for the South American to get a grip of the sport, and in 2009, on board a KTM, Chaleco managed to snatch his first Dakar victory on his home soil in Chile.
But it wasn't to be Coma, Desprez or Street who would win the 7th stage. The winner was none other than Francisco Lopez, ex-450cc world champion.
You see, Francisco wasn't an average run-of-the-mill rider. Well, not like you can say that about any Dakar racer, but my point is, he was special, worthy of competing with the greats, with huge untapped potential.
So now maybe you're seeing what Aprilia saw in him too, why they entrusted him with the Italians' Dakar charge. And that charge was going to continue in 2011. The Giofi team expanded, now featuring 5 factory riders and 8 privateers. They signed Joan Barreda to the team, a name that wasn't too familiar back in the days, but a name that was going to be a part of the history books. And yet, during those times, Chaleco was still the team leader, and rightfully so. 2011 also presented Aprilia with a huge opportunity, as ASO finally enforced the 450cc engine displacement ban. Suddenly, from the smaller machine that had to catch up, Aprilia's XV became a favorite, and they took it more serious than ever. The Italians employed 10 mechanics and 3 team managers. 2 6x6 trucks and 3 assistance cars were going to support the official riders. After last year's showing, it was clear Aprilia was determined to steal KTM's crown.
But the start of the rally brought with it the same old story. Cyril Desprez and Marc Comas on board their KTMs showed everyone why they were legends of the sport, taking an early lead.
That being said, Chaleco got close in stage 2, but not close enough. And that all changed in stage number 7, when the Chilean managed to bag a stage win on his home soil.
A Chilean came to frustrate their plans. In the stage 2 Iquique, Francisco Chaleco Lopez missed the victory. This Sunday he didn't let go of his chance to get a 5th stage win in his Dakar career.
Aprilia was back in business. Stage 11 also featured Chaleco leading the pack, only to lose his advantage towards the end of the day. Still, a strong and consistent performance. While not quite in the contention for the first place, the Italians managed to put another great show. Until the Dakar stomped on their parade during one of the last days. Stage 13. That day brought a Chilean rider that seemed to have a podium finish secured. All he had to do was bring it home. Unfortunately, as the old saying goes, in order to finish first, you first have to finish. As our rider entered the last timed section, 181 kilometers were separating him from securing that podium. And then, with just 22 to go, disaster struck. The Aprilia's rear suspension link broke, leaving the Chilean stranded. 3 of his teammates jumped in to help and swapped the destroyed rear tire, but it took a 4th one to give him a tow towards the finish line.
That day, Chaleco finished 1 hour behind the leader, and that failure was enough to bump him off the podium. There was nothing he could have done that day. Sometimes, the Dakar can be cruel. This was one of those times, as the rally robbed Aprilia of a 2nd consecutive podium.
What makes it even more sour, during the 2011 edition, Chaleco was the only rider that managed to challenge Cyril Desprez and Marc Comas. The only one who came close. So close, yet so far away. During the off-season, Aprilia also managed to sell a few of their rally bike prototypes for privateers. For 37,000 euros, it wasn't a small ask, and their replicas were sold solely by Team Geophil. But they did something else in order to make this insanely costly project more justifiable. The factory created a conversion kit for regular XV models. A customer could send in their own bike and receive something that resembled a rally replica. Aprilia still had to modify this customer bike's chassis and components.
They added the tower structure, extra tanks, new exhaust, seat, plastics, Olin's damper, and more. But what old XV customers got was a motorcycle fully prepared to take on the world of rallying.
The follow-up year, in 2012, Aprilia decided to put one more coin in the machine. After the traumatic finish of last year, they worked extensively on improving their twins' reliability. They brought in Arnaud Besnier and Edouard Boulanger, person who was going to become the original mapman. Check out that video. Also, they had Alain Duclos to support Chaleco's efforts. But speaking of the Chilean, things weren't looking bright for him. Months before the start, he suffered a major crash in that year's Tunisian rally.
The recovery was long, as he had to undergo 6 surgeries to get his body back up to shape. There were questions floating around the paddock regarding how ready Chaleco really was. And all those questions got an immediate answer.
Francisco Lopez did great in this stage. A perfect ride allowed him to break Comas' time. The Chilean biker arrived after 32 minutes and 37 seconds, clinching his 6th Dakar stage victory.
As the Chilean managed to take the win on stage 1, 14 seconds ahead of Marc Comas.
Last year I finished the Dakar on a bad note, so today I managed to win the special. Nobody thought I would be able to win, so it's a great start.
As the second day came around, it seemed like Chaleco was a new man, as on the halfway mark, only 8 seconds separated him from the Spaniard. Sure, a little time was lost towards the end, but Aprilia had started the rally with a bang, and they kept on going for the 3rd stage, as only a few seconds split Chaleco from the 3rd position of that day. The first few days saw an utterly impressive performance by the Team Geophil rider, but that streak wasn't long-lived. Chaleco went back the following days, constantly missing the top 5. Now, I personally think stage 6 was the point where the Chilean rider realized he had to up the pace, to take more risks. and as stage 7 unfolded, he was running in second position throughout the day. The strategy was working. Until it wasn't. And his rally suddenly came to an end. Lopez crashed out and managed to aggravate his previous injuries. He went back on his feet, but with a beaten Aprilia beneath him and
an even worse scuffed up rider on top of the beast. Not much later, Chaleco had to withdraw from the rally. Aprilia's hopes for an overall win were sent to rest together with this announcement.
Now, the Italians did come out with a small positive at the end of the day, as they had the only factory bike that managed to complete the entire rally using its original engine. In a way, they managed to show the world how reliable their Dakar prototype really was. But deep down, I'm sure they hoped for more. Not clinching the win or another podium must have hurt.
If you've come this far, I do want to quickly segue and tell you that we have launched a Patreon page for those of you who want to support us directly. There you'll find updates of ongoing projects in text form so that you can get a glimpse of our work and what's coming. Thanks again, back to the video.
Now, this was the bittersweet end of Aprilia's rally racing program. You have to realize the Italians were a much smaller organization than their counterparts, and that's especially true if you look at their past off-road offerings. The thing is, it became impossible to justify the massive budgets required in running this team. But also, in a way, Aprilia had chosen one of the worst eras to try and compete in. An era marked by Cyril Desprez and Marc Comas, two absolute legends of the sport, and for good reason. Realistically speaking, it was hard to dream of anything other than second place, as long as those guys were battling it out. Chaleco was an amazing rider. The Aprilia managed to punch way above its weight. But in order to beat these greats, all stars would have to align, and they just never quite did.
Francisco Lopez became a national hero for his entire racing career on two wheels. After the announcement of the Italians leaving the Dakar, he signed up again and kept on competing as a privateer.
Later on, the Chilean switched over to race on four wheels, becoming part of an exclusive group of riders that managed to win stages on both two- and four-wheeled machines. And let me tell you, that's not a big club. Quite exclusive, actually. Because of its short run, I'm afraid Aprilia's efforts might become a forgotten part of history. And it's a shame because it really was a great story, one of never giving up, about an underdog deciding to take on a challenge despite knowing how close to impossible it was. Maybe this video will keep this part of history alive. And maybe, with their recent rallying success with the big Touareg and their newly announced 450 adventure bike, just maybe...
Let me finish this video with a question. Why couldn't they give the Dakar another shot? With a completely out of the ordinary bike, the baby Touareg. I'm sure I'm not the only one who would love to see that happening. Thanks for watching. Have a good one. Bye.